Every year, the National Urban League releases its highly anticipated report on the state of Black America. The report has become the national touchstone for the social and economic status of African American and Hispanic communities. This year's report, One Nation Underemployed, Jobs Rebuild America, addresses the growing and underemployment crisis and how African Americans and other communities of color can recover from the losses of the Great Recession and forge a path to economic stability and upward mobility. Each year we ask the question, what is the state of Black America? Today our esteemed panelists will answer the question as it relates to Black women and discuss solutions for overcoming the challenges facing women of color. What is the state of Black women? How do we improve it? Joining me, Lauren Victoria Burke, Managing Editor of Politic 365, Stefanie Brown James, founder of Brown Girls Lead, and Cynthia Dinkins, President and CEO of the Northern Virginia Urban League. Welcome you all.
Thank you.
So, we do these conversations about the state of Black women, and sometimes it's almost offensive, right? Because it's like, where's the one Black woman? What is she going through? What is she facing? What is she challenging? Talk a little bit about, Steph, if you will, the nuances of the condition of Black women in America, how there is a great scale of what Black women are dealing with, and how we need to change this narrative about what Black women are dealing with and how we combat some of the challenges.
You know, it's interesting, Jeff, as I sit on this panel and I look at these three women who sit here, I'm reminded of how beautiful and how diverse Black women are. We are not a monolith community. We have a lot of ups, we have a lot of downs, but at the end of the day, I believe that the state of Black America, the state of Black women is very strong. However, we continue to see that there are challenges that uniquely impact and affect Black women and especially Black girls. We're in a society now where you have 4 out of 10 young Black women who don't graduate from high school. We're in a state now where 1 out of 10 young Black women have some type of disciplinary action that causes them to be expelled from school, oftentimes because of cultural sensitivities that aren't there with the school districts. And so we're continuing to see, I think, a lot of challenges that impact our young ladies. But at the same time, the positive side is that Black women, I believe, are also really feeling their power when it comes to the political space. While we only have 17 out of the 98 women who are in Congress are Black women, we see time and time again, as you saw in 2008 and 2012, Black women vote at a higher percentage than any other person in the country. And so we continue to see this juxtaposition of very positive aspects of Black women's lives, but we continue to see a lot of growth that needs to continue to happen.
And with that, one of those areas is around income inequality. And income inequality has been a conversation that we've seen in different sectors. But what do Black women specifically have to begin doing? Is it be more a part of this broader women's music movement? Or is it about Black women really creating their own movement that looks like them, even with the nuances, and feels like them, but says, look, these are things that we need. And while we may be in solidarity with white, Latino, Asian, other women, here's what Black women need to have.
That's a great question. I was speaking to a young woman the other day, and I told her every job that I've had, I was recommended by a mentor who was a Black woman. So I always encourage young Black women in high school, in college, get a mentor. Look at somebody who you feel you want to be like, emulate that person, and get a mentor, because invariably our white counterparts and our Asian counterparts, they pick up, if they don't have a job, they pick up the phone and they work that network. So that's one of the things at the Northern Virginia Urban League, and then personally I've always espoused, is to find a mentor, and then when you move up the ranks, you reach behind and you mentor someone who looks like you.
Lauren, let me come to you on this, because policy affects so much of what we're dealing with. And what the Urban League has done is really looked at key areas of where women are being affected. But we also know that one of the areas where you begin to turn the needle is in policy. If there were to be a policy agenda for Black women that started to turn the needle on some of the areas that I think Stefanie talked about, what would that policy agenda look like? And who's supporting it?
Well, the economic question, the equal pay question, obviously would have to be number one, the policy agenda. The other thing that isn't talked about as much, because it's somewhat outside the reach of government, of course, is the problem of single-parent families, which is the number one driver of poverty for Black women and white women in America. not being married and having children out of wedlock is a huge, huge issue in the black community. Now, of course, that's not something that we would say the government, of course, can control. It's something, it's a personal, exactly, it's a personal choice, of course. But, you know, you obviously have the leadership, certainly church leadership, and everybody else maybe put pressure on that. That's really the #1 driver of a lot of the problems, a lot of dysfunctions in the black community. So as far as policy is concerned, you obviously need the equal pay movement, you need education. Thankfully, black women are not represented well within the incarceration statistics, which is a good bit of news. But still, the income gap, the wealth gap between black and white in this country is huge right now. It's driven by the subprime mortgage problem. And it continues. That is an absolutely huge issue. So even though we do see some bright spots here and there, we have some huge, huge challenges ahead.
And I've even got some issues with how we begin to categorize some things.
Right.
Because even when we talk about unwed black single mothers, we seldom talk about the nuances of divorce. And divorce is affecting not just black families, but American families, right? But we don't talk about that the same way when we deal with black women. We just add them to that pool of disenfranchised black women that don't have anybody to be with and are raising kids by themselves.
Right. The entire issue of women raising kids by themselves is an extremely sensitive issue. It's an issue that we, I think, have a great deal of difficulty really confronting.
But it is also not monolithic.
It is certainly not monolithic. And of course, the biggest group in this country that is in poverty are white women with a kid. So there's that. There's always this image of the welfare queen, all that. That's always been unfair. But it is, of course, a big driver of a lot of the problems economically in our community. So it's something we do have to deal with, even though I do think it's probably outside.
No, absolutely. Go ahead, Seth, please.
And just to tag on to Lauren's point, you know, when you really look at you have black women who are becoming the sole breadwinners of their households, yet this issue of the income gap is real. Equal pay, or the lack thereof, is real. And it's also one that is broken down when you look at black women make 64 cents on a dollar for every dollar that a white man makes. But also, white women make 78 cents. And so while we should be together and we should talk about how women can move forward, we also have to look at a specific set of policy issues that need to be directed towards the advancement of closing this gap for black women as it relates to all the women. And you know, you talked about some best practices. Every single year you have organizations, many sororities, like Delta Sigma Theta has their national Day on the Hill, where you see these women who go around Capitol Hill and they talk to their legislators about the need to have policies that directly impact our communities. And that is a key program and a key initiative that we need to continue to see more of.
Are there enough black men supporting black women policy issues?
Well,
no, there isn't. I mean, we know the answer to that one. I mean, all the major, this has been a tradition, of course, in American history, just in general. All the major civil rights organizations, et cetera, are generally run by men. I don't know about you, but when I go to events, who I see in the background doing the work is the women. Okay, I do see the men in charge. That's great. I love the men.
Men don't do no work?
I'm not saying they don't do any work, but you know what I'm saying. When you go to an event, well, then I'll tell you what I'm saying. When I go to an event, I see the women doing the work. I see them in the background. I see them doing the hustling. I see it at every organization, every event, every convention.
So you're saying men don't do the work?
I'm not saying they don't do the work. I'm saying the women do most of the work.
I wasn't even going to be mad at you if you did. I just wanted you to be clear about it.
You know
but to Lauren's point, there is a dichotomy between men and women within the civil rights community, within political communities, we got some sexism issues. And so I'm interested in where does that gap begin to get bridged, where these issues that are uniquely African American women issues begin to be championed by men, not men being the spokespersons of them, to your point. How does that happen? And are we seeing it on any issues?
Well, education is one issue, I would say. One of the programs we have at the Northern Virginia Urban League that I would hope we can work our way out of that is pregnant teenagers. But one of the focus areas we do is making sure these young women graduate from high school, and if they don't go to college, they do something so they can get a living wage, not minimum wage, living wage. And we find that we have several African American role models who will assist these young women, not just black women, but Black men who are helping them find internships, doing what they can to help support for childcare. But invariably, that is something I hope we work our way out of, are these young women, young girls having babies and then not finishing school. So one of our goals is you've got to finish high school, and then let us find a way where you can get a living wage, whether that's going to a four-year institution, a vocational, or something of that nature. So I think in education, I'm seeing it where we're starting to bridge that gap, and Black men are stepping up to the plate.
And that's good to hear.
And
Please.
and I think that before we talk about how we can really get behind each other as it relates to policy solutions, we also really need to address the relationships between Black men and Black women. I mean, there's some serious conversations that we need to have, just to say, let's start with, I respect you, you respect me, I like you, you like me. These are our common differences, and this is what pisses me off about you.
Yes.
And let's have some real conversations before we can talk about how do you support me on the policy and how are you supporting me professionally and personally.
Well, but the reality is sometimes the policy side is easier because as a man, I can support you on some policy stuff and you're not getting into my stuff.
Exactly.
You're not coming into my house. You're not dealing with my marriage. You're not dealing with my, absolutely.
Right.
And so I totally agree with you, but where do you see that happen? Do you see that being a generational issue, to be fair? I think that there's been challenges with that in previous generations. There's been leadership challenges, I think, to a lot of things that Lauren has talked about. As you all have come up and are seeing shifts in leadership, are you seeing men of Generation X or Generation Y able to see women in power in ways that their fathers or grandfathers who were baby boomers, part of the civil rights generation, may not have been able to?
A little bit. I mean, a little bit. I mean, I think we have to commend Reverend Sharpton, putting Janelle in charge, and Janae, right, in charge. I mean, that was great. He's put Tamika Mallory in charge, and not just talked about having women around, but put them in positions of control and some power. Young women, that's right, and having them go up and speak in front of everybody. That means a lot. I mean, I don't think that we can say that about everybody, and that was rare. That's recent. Certainly, if you look at the history of the civil rights movement, it has been men in charge, and we hear about the ladies' stories later on someplace else. And so, frankly, I think that women have to step up and create perhaps their own organizations and their own power base. I know we do have an issue in the Black community with having too many organizations and everybody doing like these sort of micromanaging things when maybe we should consolidate more. But quite frankly, unless you kind of start your own thing and anoint yourself sometimes, you'd be waiting a long time for somebody else to put you in charge. So that's part of the issue too.
As a woman
I'm waiting for a plug to come. I'm waiting for a plug to come.
Just a slight plug. As a woman, I came through the civil rights organizational structure, and I would not say that it was a driving force for me to say, hey, I want to have my own organization, I want to have my own company, which I do now. But I really saw it as an opportunity for me to be able to harness my skills as much as possible and to be able to really outreach to women in the way that I wanted to. The way to best do that was to start my own organization, Brown Girls Lead. And with that, Brown Girls Lead is actually situated on college campuses, primarily HBCUs. Right now we're at Howard University. And I do see on campus that there are a number of young Black men who do support the Black women who are running for student government president, who are head of the Greek sororities and make sure that they support each other. And so I think that it is something that we will continue to see in the younger generations. The older generations need to really catch up. I'm very interested to see how some of these organizations that are having leadership changes, how they will embrace women as a part of their leadership structure in a real way. But I think that there are some places where you see that dynamic change and men supporting women really coming to fruition.
We could talk about this stuff all day long, but there's something that's kind of burning at me. It's like there's this scandal fever around the country, and it's the image of a Black woman who is strong, who is powerful, but who is self-dependent and personally messed up. Like, what does that do for Black women? What does that say when that's one of the predominant images of Black women in public space? And again, because this isn't just about TV, how do we push images of Black women comprehensively to start breaking down some of the glass and platinum ceilings both in corporate America and in politics.
Right, and the beauty, I think, of this situation is that, which is also ironic, is that here you have Michelle Obama, who I actually believe is one of the most dominant images of black women. She's clearly the most popular person in the White House right now. And you have her juxtaposed against Olivia Pope, who also has access to the White House, but we have the fictional character, and then you have Michelle Obama. And really, as we talk about balance, which I think is so important when you talk about images, Olivia Pope is flawed. She's strength, but she's also a flawed woman who has her issues, as we all do. And what I would love to see is for us to get to a point where we have so many images of black women in the media, in newspapers, and magazines, where we don't have to just fixate on this one image, because we have so many. So we can have the Atlanta housewife, and we can have the girl from VH1, and we can have Michelle Obama, because there's such a breadth of diversity in what we see. Unfortunately, we continue to not see that play out, especially in magazine culture. And I'm so happy that you have so many women who are talking about the whitewashing of magazines, just to put it frank, where there's so many different industries where we have to continue to have a more balanced viewpoint of black women.
As you all well know, we could keep this conversation going on and on. I really appreciate all of you all coming on and sharing your expertise and insight. This has been a very important conversation.
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
You all, please share this conversation with your social media friends and followers. Let's continue this solution session and idea session. Use hashtag #JobsForAll. Get involved in this movement now, you all. The State of Black America web series has been presented by AT&T. Thank you, AT&T, for your continued support of the National Urban League. We also thank Comcast for their production support of the State of Black America web series. Together, we're empowering communities and changing lives. You can always follow me on Twitter at Jeff's Nation. But for more information on the State of Black America and to purchase the book, visit the National Urban League at nul.org.